ID is 37-3263. I am part of Gorilla Squad, and this is our project for the Embedded Systems course CSEN 701. My participation in this project was the connection of the components, the setup method, the key press method, which is responsible for taking input from the keypad used in our project, the reprint LCD method, which is responsible for viewing our output on the LCD screen. Now I will explain the parts of the code which I have written. First, let's start with the void setup method. This method is simply to assign the pins each to each functionality. The door pin, which is an LCD LED, which is a LED light, is an output. The fire LED pin is also an output. The temperature pin, which detects the fire, is an input. First, I set up the LCD screen to be 16 columns and 2 rows. The first message that is printed on the LCD screen is smart attendance, which is the name of the project. Then I assign the serial begin baud rate to 9600. The next method is inside this loop, which is to check fire all the time, just in case it happens. And the other method that runs infinitely is the keypad write, which is responsible for taking inputs from the keypad we're using in our project. The keypad write method is simple. We're just scrolling. So, in the keypad write method, there is a char key, which is the key that is pressed by the keypad. If there is no key, I will not do anything because no one has pressed anything. If a key is pressed and it is not the enter button, which is denoted by the hashtag, I add to my text, which is the keypad text, the key that is pressed. Else, if it is the enter button, I check the person entering, which is the method Daniel Ashraf is responsible for, and he will explain it later afterwards. Now I will explain practically what I have just explained in the code. If you can look with me over here, this is the keypad that we're using as an input. When I press this 8 button, it is recorded in the string key text that was in the code. Next I will press the 0, the 8, and the 0 again, which corresponds to an ID we are using. When I press the hashtag red button over here, it corresponds to the enter, which means that a valid ID is submitted. This ID is now printed on the LCD screen, which is another method I'm handling, which is the reprint LCD. This method is responsible for printing whichever text is provided in it. It takes 2 input as parameters, one for the upper row, which is in our case the 8080 joint, one for the lower row, which is the class and the number of the people inside the class. Thank you.
We reset the current time in class for each student and the duration in class for each student. And then the door opens and closes, which means that the instructor enters the class. If the class hasn't started, then we keep track of the class and time. We print on the screen that this class has finished, and we call the class ended method. If the student is registered, we toggle the variable that indicates if he is currently in class or not, and then we keep track of when he enters the class. This piece of code is responsible for counting how many students are in class, and finally we print the ID of the student who joined the class. If the student leaves the class, we calculate the duration by getting the difference between the current time he left the class and the time he entered the class, and we add it to the previous duration. And then we calculate again the count of students currently in class. And now I'll practically explain my part. When I enter the ID of the student, it displays on the LCD that 8080 joined the class, and the number of students currently in class are 1. And now an instructor. The class has started, when the instructor enters the class. We will wait a few seconds. And now 80 left the class. Class 1 has finished and student 80 took his attendance even when he left the class earlier. He took attendance because he attended 70% of the duration of the class. The duration of the class was calculated by keeping track of the start time of the class, which is the time when a teacher or instructor enters the class, and the end time was calculated by keeping track of when the teacher leaves the class.
Hello, my name is Anwar Labib. My ID is 37-4549. I did two parts in the project. The first part is the class-ended method, which is responsible for saving all the data whenever the class ends. And the second part in the project is handling everything whenever a fire occurs, like linking the LED and doing all the other things that should be done. I will now explain the class-ended method. Let's dive in. First of all, the first thing I do after the class ends is that I open the door for the students to leave, and I wait for 3.5 seconds, and then I close the door again, assuming that all the students left. Then I do the calculations of the duration in class once more that Daniel explained to get the final data, and then I loop on all the students, and if they attended more than 75% of the duration of the class, which is, Daniel explained everything concerned with calculations, but if the student attended more than 75% of the class, I increment his attendance and he takes the attendance of this course. Then I reset everything back to null or zero because another class will start. So I set the currently in class of every student to false, no one is in class, assuming everybody left, and then I reset the current timer. I will now explain my two remaining methods. The first one is reset in case of fire, which is basically resetting everything back to its original state. If I end the class, assuming that the class is cancelled and there is no class on the system, and remove everything from the system. I set all the students that they are not currently in class, I set them back to false because I assume they all left the class and ran because of the fire. And reset current timer is responsible for resetting all the variables back to their original state, which Ahmed Yasser will then later on explain.
Abdurrahman Tariq. My ID is 37-8080. I'm in T12 and I've participated in the Smart Attendance project. Now, I've done three things. I have done the checkfire method, I've participated in writing the results to a file, and I've also participated in connecting the components.
So in the main loop we have the method called checkfire. Let's take a closer look into what this function is made of. Now in checkfire, we basically check for the temperature. We read it from the analog pin that is available on our Arduino board, and then we convert it to Celsius. We convert the temperature to Celsius, and then we make an if condition. We check if the temperature is higher than 25.8 degrees Celsius. If it's higher than that, then it means that this can't be natural. There has to be something wrong. So we assume that it's a fire, that there's a fire. So I call these methods blink fire LED, open door, and I just reprint the LCD. I write fire on the LCD so to notify everyone in the room that there is a fire, and then reset in case of fire. Now, the rest of my teammates are going to explain explicitly what's in these methods. Okay, now me and Anwar are going to practically explain how the fire detection system works. Now, the fire should be close to the sensor. And remember, the sensor detected more than 25.8 degrees Celsius, and now the fire is displayed. It's displayed on an LCD screen that there is a fire, and the red light is blinking.
and also the doors are open.
That is
so
not
this LED is supposed to be on.
My name is Ahmad Yasser, 3714457, T12. I have done the method of opening and closing the door, took part in connecting the components, and I have done the method of resetting all the timers, the student entering and so on. So I'll explain my part. First, the reset current timer, which we use in two cases, which are ending the class or fire detection. So basically, we set the start time back to 0, we set the end time to 0, and then we loop for every student in the class, and we set the duration time in class, we set it to 0. We set the current time in class for every student back to 0. Second, I'll explain two methods, which are open door and close the door. We use them whenever an instructor or a student enter the class or leave the class. We use them in case of fire detection. They are basically about setting the door pin to high in case of open, and setting the door pin to low in case of close.
دخل عبده لا ماشي كده. ده الانستراكتور. ماشي ها. عبده مثلا. دخلنا انا مثلا. ماشي طلع الانستراكتور. ورينا الفايل. لا اتكلم عادي كده. لا فلاني اللي اون فاير. ما شاء الله.